So yeah, at first, please tell us something about your musical education.
Yeah, so I was a classical music student. I went to a music conservatory and studied composition. And before that, I was always absolutely obsessed with music. So going to a music conservatory was absolutely the best thing that I could imagine at that age. And at the same time, I was interested in recording studios. I really liked technology and liked computers, and was just interested in making things sound really good. So I found a conservatory that where I could study composition classically and also study recording technology. Um, so in college, I spent half my time writing music and half my time in the recording studios of the university, recording my friends and recording recitals. Um, so that was my education, and that although I loved writing music, the audience seemed small for classical music, and I was looking for something bigger. Plus, I love being in recording studios, so I was lucky to get a job at National Public Radio in Washington D.C., where I was able to get into professional studios, even though it wasn't music production. I loved being in the professional environment and working at that level. So after that, I decided, with no real resources or no connections at all, just to move to Los Angeles, because I didn't know that film music was a career you could have, but I knew that LA was where, all the things that I loved were made. And if I wanted to make things like that, I had to move there. So without knowing anything, I just moved and spent about 6 or 7 months trying to find a job. I thought when I came to LA that with my background at NPR, I would be able to walk right into a job as an assistant or an engineer at a pop studio, and it was completely wrong. I couldn't get anybody to call me back at all for about 6 months, and finally the first place that called me back was Klaus Badelt, who was looking for a runner in Hans Zimmer's studio. So I went over to meet actually Ramin, his assistant at the time, and saw the studio that they were working out of, and it blew my mind because it was this combination of music that I loved and the production technology that was my other love. Just brought everything together, and the amount of power that they had in the studio was amazing. So once I saw that, I was, I'm staying.
I only knew a few pictures of that, but yeah, it looks really amazing.
Yeah, it was such an experience. I mean, I didn't even know that was a career that you could have. I knew about Hans, and I knew about Danny Elfman and John Williams, but I didn't understand that they had written music specifically for these movies. I thought that it was just music that people had taken and put into a film at the time. There wasn't really very much information about film composers out there. So sort of the revelation and the, like, you get to spend your life doing this, fantastic, sign me up. And in a way, that was, working for Klaus was my second musical education, because he and Ramin taught me so much about writing music for films. I learned everything on the job. Um, so that was sort of and of course, like all artists, my musical education continues. That's one of the most fun things about the job is continuing to learn every day.
Do you still working with Klaus?
Not for quite a while. We're still friends. I saw him a few months ago before COVID hit. But no, I've been working on my own movies since 2010 or so. Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, what was your very first assignment as a composer or film music composer?
My first film score, there was a couple. There was Red Line was a movie about car racing here, which I scored with my friend Andrew Rayer, and that was a lot of fun. That was like an action car movie. And then the first one that I did fully on my own was a German film, a German Disney film called Lily the Witch, which was fantastic. It was such a great time. I love these films that are sort of wide open in their scope. So this idea of this little girl who out of nowhere inherits magical powers and has to save the earth, it's sort of wacky and colorful and big. So that was really a great first film for me. I had a really good time. I've scored a lot of German films. I've worked in Munich quite a lot. Yeah, it's, that's, again, there's a lot of fun things about this job, and working with different people in different cities is so much fun. I always like coming to Germany.
Do you have a favorite instrument within or outside an orchestra?
Well, what I really like is I travel as much as I can, and I always collect instruments from everywhere. So I love handmade, imperfect instruments. Recording those brings so much life into a film score. So that's really my favorite thing. On the classical side, piano, cello, guitar are probably the top three. Piano is what I like most composers. I spend all day playing piano, and it's such an evocative, sort of immediately evocative instrument. And then cello is emotional in a way that it's hard for almost any other instrument to be. It really connects really directly with emotions. And guitar can do anything. The guitar is probably the most versatile instrument between electric and acoustic guitars. You can score a whole film just with guitar easily. It's so, yeah. I mean, those three are a pretty good base. But my heart and soul is in these unusual instruments that maybe people don't know exactly what they are, but they still sound organic and kind of familiar.
Yeah, so more general, what is inspiring you?
All sorts of things. I love contemporary art, other art forms, writing, novels. I mean, I think that everybody can find inspiration everywhere. I listen to other film scores. I listen to, contemporary pop music. Ideas are what inspire me. So they're everywhere, movies and everybody is working, all creatives are working so hard to have their individual ideas and put them out there and have them be effective and evocative. And it's wonderful. So I get inspiration from going to museums, from watching movies. I read constantly. Always have. My grandmother was an author, and my dad writes, and I think reading is built into my family. So I've always read nonstop. And these ideas, they translate directly into music. An idea out of a novel, or a way that some character reacts to a situation, or the feeling in a painting. All of these things can translate straight to music.
What do you think is the best thing about composing music?
It's like having a new toy. Every time you write a new melody or a new score, it's like a little jewel that you've created. Some people can go buy a new car, but for me, this is a thing that I now have. And the process of discovery, the process of trying to take something that you're writing and whittle it down to the most basic and clear form of itself, and then make it, revise and trim away things that aren't, kind of carve it into what it's going to become. I love everything about that process.
And is there something that makes composing less fun for you?
Overall, no. I mean, every job has its challenges. At a certain point in the film, there's a deadline approaching, as everybody who does this knows. And at that point, it's work. It's real work. You have a certain number of minutes that have to be finished and really, really good by the end of the day. But even that, it's the deadline also helps creatively. So even that I can't say is all bad. If there's no deadline, then you never finish. So, that part of the process is challenging. The amount of things that need to get finished, and you're super tired, and maybe start to lose track of what's good and what isn't. But it's still fun.
So how much time do you get to compose?
It's all over the place. 3 months is great, is perfect. 2 months, 3 months is still good. I've done projects in as little as 10 days, which is really, really tough. I mean, starting from the first moment you're, not sleeping and producing music as quickly as possible. And it's possible, but ideally 2 to 3 months is really good, because I have to, ideally I want to spend time, at least a week just thinking about the characters and thinking about what they're going through, what's going through their minds, and how I can help bring their inner mental state to the audience and make the audience feel like they have something at stake with the character's journey, and make it personal for the audience is what I want to do. And that figuring out those basic ideas that are going to do that is worth spending a good amount of time on.
Yeah, it's always interesting to know how our composer works in order to get the finished score at the end. So how are your work steps? What to start with and what to do afterwards?
Well, the first step is usually a long conversation with the director, because I can watch the movie, but the director, my job is to add to the film and elevate it. And the director has the best idea of what he's trying to accomplish with this film. So get together with the director and have conversation, not just about the movie, but I want to know about what her perspective or his perspective is on the world and what they enjoy. And, I want to know everything that's going into this film, all the emotions that are going into this film. So it starts with that, and then really going and working on the characters' themes to figure out what are those few notes and those few sounds that are going to make it attached to the audience. And usually play those for the director and make sure we're on the same page, and sort of the direction and the sound and the sound palette is what they're going to respond to. And then literally go and start writing cues. So usually there's around 20, 30, cues per film. So I'll pick one that's not one of the bigger ones, but not a tiny one, something in the middle that's not going to be super hard from a production perspective. So I can focus on the music, and the production doesn't take that much time, so I can play it to the director and see if we're, again, make sure that we're going the right direction. And then once I feel fairly confident that I know what I'm doing, then start tackling the bigger stuff and move forward and figure out how many minutes I have to do per day.
What can you tell me about Chance?
Chance. So Chance is a really interesting and I think important film. It's a fictionalized true story of a teen baseball prodigy in Ohio who killed himself. So he got himself into a bad situation, and over the period of a few days couldn't see a way out of it, and made that decision. The film is handled in a really empathetic way, and the goal, I think, of the film is to sort of, it's not preachy, but to do some education that there are problems in life, and a problem doesn't mean that somebody isn't loved, and that there's solutions and people can help. So I thought the story was so important. There's people out there that are going through such hard times. So I really wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. So I wrote the score, wrote 3 original songs for the score with a singer named Angela Parrish, who was one of the featured singers on La La Land. She's a fantastic sort of hybrid folk, Americana, jazz singer. She's got her own style, and I was really happy to work with her on the movie. So we had a great time writing 3 songs as well as the score. Yeah.
How did you get to this project?
They heard some of my music and saw some videos on my website where I sort of explained my values and my approach to film music and what I want to accomplish. And they responded to that, and responded to I play all these instruments, and I like to play a lot of the instruments on the scores myself, and I think that they like that too. So they reached out. The film takes place in Ohio, and they wanted this really organic sound. So they sort of like a really genuine feeling to the score. So I worked with them, and musically, I wanted to make it fairly positive. The film didn't need to be too dark. The subject matter was already so dark. So the film itself, they really wanted to approach in an empathetic way, and that's what I tried to do with the music too. So make it accepting and uplifting and well acknowledging, what's happening.
And congratulations to becoming a member of the Recording Academy. What can you tell me about it, and what is your job there?
It's a pleasure to be part of a community of, professional creators. That's one of my favorite things about this career is working with people that are so talented. It's really a privilege, and it's so much fun because they bring ideas and we learn from each other. So being a part of that community is something that I was really looking forward to. And, it's nice to have a voice, and the Grammys are the biggest, award in the world. And the idea of having, my little input into, what I think is good is really nice, really humbling, and really appreciate it. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. The community is really so important to me.
And you have to watch a lot of movies and give your voice or listen to music?
Yes, tons. Lots and lots.
Yeah, what are your current or next projects?
Yeah, well, the virus interrupted some plans. So what I'm focusing on right now actually is I decided that as much as I love music, I actually wanted to go one step bigger and tell my own stories. So I'm working on spec scripts. I've got a TV pilot that's, in a third draft. And I'm having an absolute blast. It's like going back to writing music for the first time, trying to figure out what's effective and writing a lot and then cutting out most of it and then writing a lot again. And it's so much fun in a whole new way, and makes me appreciate film score in a new way. I'm listening to other people's film scores as I write, and so I've discovered all kinds of great music that I hadn't noticed before. And that's influencing the writing, and writing is influencing the music that I'm writing. So that's my project right now.
How do you record in these times?
Film scores?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, recording is like orchestral recording or instrument recording. Yeah. So, as far as the personal size instruments, guitar and stuff like that, a lot of the time I like to play it myself because I don't necessarily want it played perfectly. It's the feeling is kind of in between the notes, and so I love playing stuff. So I record stuff constantly. There's always a microphone set up, and then when it needs to be more virtuosic or with really good technique, or there's a lot of musicians who are bringing their own ideas, which is fantastic. Then love working with as many musicians as possible. It's really a luck. Musicians are such a luxury because they bring in so much life to a score, and then you get to kind of go back and forth with them, and they're bringing in their own perspectives and their own opinions and ideas, and shaping those to fit the score is a really fun process. And then, of course, orchestral recording in London. I've recorded in London, China, Los Angeles. That's when you realize what the music is if it's an orchestral score. When it's played by an orchestra, it's bigger, even, indescribably bigger. The details are bigger, clearer, warmer. It surrounds you in a new way. So that's always a really fun moment.
It must be a great feeling to hear your own music from an orchestra the first time.
It's amazing. Every single time, it's incredible. The first note. I was the last project that I did was a documentary called Cured, which will come out next year. And for that, I wanted to make it really personal and intimate. It's a gay rights documentary about the struggle to get homosexuality taken off of the list of mental illnesses in the United States. So I wanted this to be a really genuine, personal score. So I invited my old friends, the Spectral Quartet, who I've known some of them since college for about 25 years, who were just nominated for they had their third Grammy nomination last year. Absolutely unbelievable string quartet, right on the edge of modern modern music, invited them to record the score with me. So they were on tour, and we managed to find one free day that they had in Dallas. So I flew to Dallas to record them, and they are, an ensemble that is used to playing together. That's at that level is so amazing to work with. You write the notes on string samples or whatever piano, but you can't imagine how it's going to sound until this ensemble plays it. And what a great experience.
Almost at the end, something I recall 5 words, 5 answers. I call 5 terms, and you tell me just briefly what comes to your mind.
Okay.
Get first, music.
Music. Let's see. Colors, scale, size, emotion, vulnerability.
Orchestra.
Scale and size again. Let's see. Orchestra is it's like raw emotion. I mean, it's so hard to describe, but it makes things real. It surrounds you and brings you into a story.
Europe.
I love Europe. My grandmother is Austrian, and my grandmother and grandfather lived in London for most of their lives. So I spent my childhood going back and forth to London. Loved working in London. Loved working in Paris and Germany. I was supposed to be on an airplane to Spain in 2 days for my 10th wedding anniversary, and that'll have to happen next year. But I love, every chance I get.
Hollywood
is one of my favorite places in the world. The amount of talent that's right here in these, in these few miles, all of the best people in the world come here to learn or to work, and it's such a privilege to be among them and working with them. That is my, is my favorite thing to do in my life and my favorite part about this city.
And the last one, hobbies.
Writing scripts right now. And aside from that, I discovered boxing about 6 or 7 years ago. I had never been in a fight in my entire life, and I decided that I wanted to see if I could handle it. So I learned to box and spent a lot of time boxing, and actually got a lot of value in my life. Learned a lot about myself, and had a great time. I'm not boxing quite as much anymore, but it's still a really fun hobby.
And that was it. And thank you very much for the interview and your time.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that was fun.